Hello and welcome to the Stoney Gaming Top 10 Games of 2023 video. So this is obviously inspired by like Angry Joe. One of these days I'll do like a influences video. But seeing as how like I don't think I've ever played as many new games as I did this year, and there were a lot of them, felt like I could kind of accurately make a good list here. And a couple notes, I don't actually feel like you need to beat all these games to tell whether or not they're good. If you can't tell within like an hour or so that a game is good or not, or if all the good shit is later on, well then, fuck your game. I'm not putting any like simple remasters on here, like even though I didn't play it, I know it looked pretty good. The Metroid Prime remaster. And spoilers for the real list, I don't consider Dead Space like just a simple remaster, even though it's not like a full-blown remake like 4. So that was on the list. And certain games like Tears of the Kingdom and Jedi Survivor, which are like, you know, glorified updates to the previous games. I didn't play that shit, and I'm not counting those either. I didn't like Breath of the Wild, so adding like a building gimmick doesn't really entice me. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Number 10. The game I thought about putting on here was Atomic Heart, because I thought it was really funny, and it had some cool ideas. But I'm not like super into Bioshock, so the novelty of it kind of wore thin. But I do appreciate the perversion in that game. But yeah, so my number 10 game is Dead Island 2. I'm a huge fan of the first one. And to me, like, you know, zombies never get super old. But like killing zombies with a bunch of different weapons and shit that you can craft, reminiscent of Dead Rising. To me, that was just a lot more fun. I like the running kick Liu Kang mechanic that they added. And I was just impressed that they were able to capture what I really enjoyed about the first one, seeing as how it was a totally different development team that did it. I don't really care for the LA setting because it's not like an island, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a cool game. Number 9. So Final Fantasy 16, I think, was a nice rebound from 15's fucking shitty characters and shitty story and whatever the fuck, you know, they were trying to say with that game. It is a little like over dramatic and very like Game of Thrones inspired as far as the story goes, but that's fine, whatever. It's a matter of preference whether you like that style of combat versus turn-based. I kind of would prefer the turn-based, but it is like a more refined version of the gameplay in 15. And there's a little more to it, I guess, what it felt like. It's also a very pretty game, so it has that going for it. All that being said, if a new Final Fantasy game being number 9 kind of didn't like set the world on fire like this franchise used to, so hopefully once all this 7 remake shit comes out, you know, they can get back to the roots, so to speak. Number 8. The Ocho. So yeah, Dead Space. A classic game, one of my favorite games of all time. The makeover that they put on it is really pretty impressive. And it, like, when you go back and play the original now, like, it's weird you can remember the tension and how scary it was when you first played it. Kind of how I feel about, like, Resident Evil 2 and 3. the originals, of course. But yeah, they definitely like messed with some of the like pacing of the game and the jump scares and shit. I didn't quite get far enough to like see any of the new shit. I don't think it was quite as substantial as like I would have liked. But that being said, it is a nice little like remix in a way of the original rather than just a straight up remastering like a Dark Souls or something like that. So really cool game. Always be a classic, and glad they remastered it. Even though it's like I said, it's not that simple. Number 7. So I was really impressed with Armored Core from a gameplay standpoint. I think it was a really fast and fluid mech game that kind of reminded me of like playing something like Virtual On or something like that when you're like fighting the other mechs and shit. uh, and all the customization is cool. I know this is like a long running series, but I've never actually dipped my toes into it. But from what I hear, this is like the most accessible one, so uh, props to them for that. I wouldn't consider it like Tears of the Kingdom or Survivor, where it's just like a upgrade to a previous game. And compared to a lot of like the millions of other Souls style games, it just, when you haven't played an Armored Core game, I guess I don't know how quite those feel, but it's just nice to have that sense of speed. It kind of reminds me of Bloodborne in that way. When you like compare playing Bloodborne to a Dark Souls game, it's kind of like the wheels are off or whatever. you know. Number 6. So a lot of great classic franchises that I love were represented this year, and RoboCop being one of the best ones. I really enjoyed the game a lot. It's like it's another like Fallout clone, Bethesda clone, but it's a great setting, and I love that they got Peter Weller and what's her face, Nancy Allen, to come back, and it feels very faithful to the franchise, which is something that's really rare nowadays. When you consider all the like woke politics and self-inserts that get thrown into all these games and movies about classic franchises. So props to who's that, Taeyon or whatever. I was really iffy on their Terminator game. I think it could have been a lot cooler, but I think they had a little more budget to work with on this one. And RoboCop's a great character to have for a game, So props. Number 5. So this one's a tough one for me because of how much nostalgia and love I have for the original Resident Evil 4. And to me, nothing, not even this game, will still touch that in a way. But it is impressive that they kind of just redid the whole thing. And it's less egregious to me than Resident Evil 3, and to a lesser extent the Resident Evil 2 remakes. Because Resident Evil 4 was already this style of over-the-shoulder third-person game, so it's cool that they did that. I guess they're just gonna go ahead and remake all of them in this style, so I'll probably not feel great about the Code Veronica one, but the 5 remake, I think that could be cool. I don't know if they'll ever touch 6. If you ever watch YouTube videos, I had never seen it until like a couple years ago, of like people actually playing Resident Evil 6, and like you see Leon like rolling on the ground and all this, and like fucking shooting from different angles and shit, like really quick. It's like these weird mechanics when you don't know you're supposed to play like that. It's like, why can't he like Stop, drop, and roll and shit. um, yeah, I think my favorite thing about the 4 remake was the changes they did to Mercenaries mode. I love how like Hunk, like you get like a, well, all the characters do, but they get like a boosted up mode or whatever where they can do something special. So he can like just have unlimited ammo shit. And Wesker has the fucking parry counter thing, which is sick. Uh, it'd be cool if they would like add some more. Um, oh yeah, I also think it's bullshit how like you can only play the VR modes on PSVR 2, even though like I have the first PSVR and it has a much bigger like installed base actually, and nobody gives a fuck about VR 2. But not only that, like it's not like they couldn't do a version for the first one, so they're kind of just fucking everyone in the ass that bought the first one. But yeah, fuck that VR 2 shit. You see what happens, Larry? You see what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass. Number 4. So as a fighting game fan, we're gonna have a couple on here, and this one is reserved for Mortal 1 Combat. Stupid ass name, MK1. But yeah, uh, I really enjoyed like kind of covering the lead up to it and all the fallout from like the Comic-Con shit on Twitter and the shitty trailers and all that. And then when it launched, like there was the player one advantage and Cyrax bullshit, and that's the one thing about NetherRealm games, and they do this shit on purpose. They want people to remember these little eras in between patches, so they'll like have a character that's really good and then totally fuck them, nerf them in the next patch. So like something else will come out that's better, and people will talk shit about and remember. Um, that being said, I did really enjoy playing it more than I thought I would, and but I feel like it can definitely at this point already. We're what, like barely over 3 months in. It does feel a little. Well, for one, it feels very bullshit if you like a character that like Sub-Zero or anything that's not in the top 5. But that being said, at least we're not looking at Jackie and Cetrion and these shitty characters that were in the 11. Um, I'm not a big fan of the guest characters. I think they all suck. But I'm looking forward to Takeda, and Quan Chi looks fun, even though he's not like obviously great with damage and shit. But yeah, that being said, with all the flaws and shit, MK1 is a fully featured experience that you typically don't get with a lot of other fighting games. Although this year there was one that did did them one better. Um, oh, and also like with the pricing on DLC and shit, they're just like getting nuts. And Ed Boon is a tyrant, but yeah, and then the controversy with the costumes censoring like the the Deadly Alliance costumes on the females and shit, and the small titties. They nerfed Sindel, so I don't know if they'll ever go back to the old days. Oh, Mortal Kombat's not about big tits. Yeah, fuck you, 'cause it totally is. Number 3. So I know I said earlier that like I don't need a lot of time to like tell if a game is really great. That being said, if you're making a top 10 list, it's kind of hard to tell if a game would be like the best if you didn't kind of play it all the way through. So I only played like a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, But that being said, like you can tell immediately, like, oh, this is some shit that doesn't come out too often. I know it was in early access for a while. I had like really no idea, so it's kind of debatable whether it even counts. But I mean, the graphics are pretty great. The character creation. Granted, I haven't played like Cyberpunk or Conan, but the options are pretty funny, and there's a lot of them. And like you're immediately thrown in and giving all these choices and shit. I know there's games like, to me it's kind of like, I guess, a Bioware game. Like the closest thing I could compare that I've actually played like a lot of or beaten was Knights of the Old Republic. So this is sort of like kind of worthy of like that style of RPG. I didn't play like Dragon Age Origins and shit like that, but sort of the RPG where you get all these fucking choices and D&D style, do your own story. I like that. Like it has like the dice and shit. I was never into that stuff as a kid, but they've managed to like capture what's cool about that in a game. So you can argue that it's the best. Whatever. Top three, pretty good to me. Number two. All right. So the reason I would put this one over the number three game, I wasn't really into D&D and shit, but I was into Harry Potter in high school, and so Hogwarts was really fucking cool. I love the setting, of course. To me, that has a lot to do with it. Uh, but also, like, I thought the gameplay was pretty cool. Like, I hate these kind of like third-person AAA games like God of War and shit, where you just walk forward and mash and whatever. But like, at least in this game, like from what I've seen of other people playing, when you actually put it on the hardest difficulty, like I did, like the enemies like actually have different attacks. They're not just have more health or anything like that. And yeah, like I said, for these type of games, to me, I think it's a lot better than basic AAA shit. Number one. I think with the disappointment of Street Fighter V and how like ugly and boring that game was to play at times, I think they really did about as good as they could with what they did with Street Fighter 6. The the style of it, the features, but the most interesting thing, of course, is the gameplay with Street Fighter 6. To me, it reminds me of Marvel Infinite in that respect, except it's actually, you could debate whether Street Fighter 6 is an ugly game or not. I know it's kind of weird to say. I think probably the only mistake was having it be a PS4 release as well. But that being said, I actually really do enjoy the art style, and some of the characters do look pretty great. Like Guile in this new, like somewhat stylized, realistic look. But yeah, Drive Rush is great. Pairing is fun. To me, it felt like a better NetherRealm game than NetherRealm could make, which is funny because they made an assist fighter, their take on it, which maybe in a way that's kind of why I like it, because it reminds me of Marvel 1. I don't think there's been a fighting game with as many features as this game. And to me, if you can make a fighting game where a blind guy can win matches on stream and like hype everyone up, like at that point you kind of made like the perfect fighting game. So someone that loves the genre and think it's like kind of the best highs you can get playing a video game, beating someone online, this had to be the game of the year for me. So yeah, props Capcom.